How's it going today? Today I'm going to take a few minutes and do a setup that was requested by a viewer of one of my videos. What he asked was to see my 2-1 team running with Skullcrusher instead of Valkyrie. So what I have done this day is I've geared up my Skullcrusher um, to the 231 speed range. I actually had to run him just a little bit faster. I'm running him at 233 because his base speed is lower than Valkyrie's. Um, but what I've got him sitting at is about just under 5,000 defense and 4,700 health points. His critical rate and critical damage is pretty mediocre. I couldn't get that without really shifting a lot of gear around and doing a whole bunch of other things. And um, I had the stuff on him that actually got him pretty close to the speed he needed already. So I just shuffled a few extra pieces to get him another 20 some, 30 some speed, and as a result, I'm low on crit. But as you can see, it's a pretty robust build. And should be adequate for the test. The other team members I've left completely unchanged. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly show them. I have Venus, and she is at 204, 100% crit. 195 is her speed. Her defense is pretty good. My expectation is she's not going to be the problem in Stalwart. My expectation is that the people who are going to die are going to be the people who are not in Stalwart and probably are not as high a defense. And my number one concern is actually Altan here. He's at 5,000 defense, but just in mixed gear. With Valkyrie's shield, he has no problem lasting till the 50th turn. I'm anticipating that he's probably going to be the one who has troubles. I've yet to run this, so you guys are going to see my first run of it. The other person who could be a problem is Marshald. He is in Stalwart, but he's only 3,200 defense, and that may well not be high enough. So I'm anticipating that these are the place where there's going to be problems. If it went far enough, I have a couple other champs who aren't in Stalwart but are around 7,000 defense, and I anticipate they're not going to be the first ones to die, although eventually they probably would have been problems too. Where's Valk? So in any case, that's my setup. I've got Venus. I've got Dutchess. I've got Altan. I've got Marshald, and I'm going to use Skullcrusher. So we'll go ahead and we'll set this up and we'll start running it. So we will just pull Valk right out of the mix, and we will drop Skullcrusher in at the same speed rate, and we will start off. The setup for this will remain the same. The setup is Marshald will immediately give his speed boost. Everybody else is going to wait 2 turns before they use their abilities, so go ahead and have Altan and Dutchess wait another turn. And there's Dutchess. Everybody's gone 2 turns now. I'm just going to go ahead and I can hit it on auto, and we will just let this run for a while, and we will see where it turns out. The expectation I have here is that this will probably die after, I don't know, somewhere between 30 and 40 turns. I've seen team setups using Martyr, and with those ones, it was hard to get the people in Stalwart gear with 3,000 or less defense through the low 30s. Now, Skullcrusher's survivability is higher, and so I am anticipating that we'll do better than that, but I'm not sure exactly how much better, and he may be more susceptible to crits too. I did keep him in lifesteal gear for this test, so he has a 4-piece lifesteal bonus and a 2-piece speed bonus, and that may help him a little bit. We'll have to see. Once this gets up to turn 9, I'm going to watch. I'll make sure that it syncs properly. I did do the Deadwood Jedi test with the speeds, and based on the feedback from DeadwoodJedi.com, the 233 was the right speed for Skullcrusher, so I'm just going to make sure that this syncs on turn 9 and he starts casting this twice every time, and once that is good, I can just let it run, and I'll let you guys see where it ends at. Okay, as you've been watching this run, you can see there's a couple areas that are bigger risks with Skullcrusher. Specifically, the areas that I'm noticing are that first AoE, he will not be unkillable, so you're almost going to need either a buff extender, or you will need a champion who does an additional ally protect to help absorb the damage on him. You know, a shielder or something like Chris could also work. I mean, that seems to be, at first glance, the biggest weak spot out of the setup using him. You're going to need him to be just exceptionally tanky otherwise. I mean, I'm running him at 48 100 defense and about 46k hit point, and he's at a point now where he's dying. I expect that the next turn, or if not the next turn, certainly the following one, he's going to be dead. So at least that's what I'm anticipating. I think he's in an extremely vulnerable spot in this type of setup for that first AoE, and I expect that that's probably where he will wipe on. As you can see, otherwise, as far as the 2-1 goes, the damage setup is quite good. I would just say that you're probably going to want to use potentially a different set of champions if you're using Skullcrusher, because you do need somebody who will keep him alive. There you can see turn 40, we got a big crit. It looks like it killed a couple people. Now, Dutchess will bring him back, but I don't think it. I think the speed is going to be screwed up, and he's probably going to wipe completely this turn. So there you go, 41 turns, 49 million damage. Again, it's pretty much the same damage output. Skullcrusher, his damage is pretty good, really. Considering I had almost no crit on him, I think he was actually doing more damage than Valkyrie would have been doing. Valkyrie probably would have been in the 7 to 9 million range, kind of right where Mashald and Dutchess are. With Skullcrusher, I built him with very low crit, and because of that, his damage probably was hampered significantly. And additionally, I think my Valkyrie is set up with 7,000 defense as well. So considering I really didn't get exceptional gear on him, I would have to approach this very differently if I was going to try to go longer with Skullcrusher. I would probably take away some of the crit damage from Mashald. I would also get Altan and Dutchess into stalwart gear at the expense of a little bit of that damage output. Altan in 4200 defense in stalwart gear will last longer than Altan in 5000 defense in mixed gear. He does more damage with 5000 defense, which is why I switched him out of stalwart, because Valkyrie's shield will cover him the 50 turns. It will not, though, with the ally protect, and the amount of damage he's taking is just killing Skullcrusher off too quickly. So in order to do this successfully with these champions, I would definitely end up moving it into stalwart gear, and I would probably still end up wanting to really improve my Skullcrusher too. I mean, he's tanky the way I set him up, but he could be even more tanky, both in terms of hit points and defense. I would probably work to improve that and get him, I don't know, 5,500 defense, and if possible, maybe 55k hit points instead of 45k that I think he's at right now. Additionally, you saw Marshall died on that crit on turn 40. I'd probably have to reconsider Marshall's damage and get him into a higher defense, kind of like closer to where Venus is at. That's really hard at 234 speed to have him in insane defense. If we go in and just take a look at the champions again, and I'll go specifically to Marshall. You can see I've got him in stalwart, but I have gone with just speed boots. I mean, honestly, for the main reason that the speed rolls on these were really good, and the defense and crit rate was beneficial. If I was going to try to do this differently, I would just ignore the crit rate completely, and I would focus on just getting the right speeds and defense and hit points, and probably not use these mixed loose gear, but I'd probably use probably a defense set, or possibly a set that was extra hit points, although defense would definitely benefit him more. Additionally, if you look at the stalwart, or I should say the Skullcrusher that I set up, I'd probably want to get him 10k more hit points and 5k more defense. As I said, his damage was really good considering he only has 36% crit. If you were to double that, he'd be in a lot better damage-wise space. So I was pretty pleased with his damage output, but his survivability needs to crank up if you want this to be successful, because that first AoE, he is not unkillable. Perhaps if you did have a buff extending champ, maybe if you happened to by some chance to have Krisk, Krisk would be awesome to use in this situation, instead of Altan. Altan's damage, of course, is probably definitely better, but, Krisk would probably be a good one because he has ally protect and buff extend. But there might be some other options. You might be able to use a champion like Jarrig, since he also has an ally protect, and you could potentially take advantage of that as well. So that would also be another possibility. Again, it wasn't bad. I'll run it again a second time, but as you can see, it still did nearly 50 million. So it's solid. It's just it's certainly not going to get you a 1 key, because the survivability of Skullcrusher just is not nearly as good as the shield that is offered by Valk. And in order to get into the 1 key range, I have tweaked my team so much, knowing that I was covered by that massive shield of Valkyrie, and I would really have to scale back the crit damage output on Marshall and on Altan if I was going to keep this same team and just get them into something that was stalwart, so they had the extra mitigation. In any event, hopefully this kind of gave you a picture of how you compare when you run Skullcrusher as opposed to Valkyrie in the 2-1 comp.